Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to Kardec Radio, to another program on Genesis, the second part of Genesis, which is dedicated to the miracles in the gospel. And we have been focusing on healings, on Jesus's healings in the past few weeks. And I welcome you all warmly to attend another study session. We're excited to study a few more so-called miracles that happened during Jesus's time, actually performed by himself. And what we have done is demystify the so-called miracles that were coined miracles for a long time. And why were they called miracles? The acts that Jesus Christ performed, the healing acts most and foremost, because nobody actually knew what was happening behind the scenes. And thanks to Spiritism and Allan Kardec, the veil has been lifted. And the key lies in the fluids, or perispirit. And we've studied all the ins and outs in the past few months. And today, and you're so welcome to go back on Kardec Radio to the different sessions we've had Sunday nights and restudy it alongside Genesis. And we never read all the texts fully, so you're invited to go and study it yourself. So today we will be turning to page 333. What a beautiful number. I wonder what that means. And the chapter is entitled, we are in chapter 15 in Genesis. And it's called Miracles in the Gospel. And this particular subchapter is entitled Several Healings by Jesus. And we will be discussing item 26 through 36. So God willing tonight. And we'll be starting with one account from Matthew 4:23 to 25. Jesus was going throughout all Galilee, teaching in the synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all weaknesses and infirmities among the people. And since his reputation was spreading throughout Syria, all those who were infirm and diversely afflicted with pains and ills, the possessed, the insane, and paralytics, were presented to him, and he healed them. And a large crowd of people followed him from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. So this is the little piece that now Allan Kardec is commenting on. And here's what he says, and not in its entirety, but again, we'll be picking out the highlights. He says, and this is item 27, of all the events that bear witness to Jesus's power, the most numerous are undoubtedly the healings. And we are aware of that too. So his healings were undoubtedly the events that showed his power most clearly. And it's exactly those healings that were labeled a miracle because they weren't understood in their depth. Through them, he wanted to show that true power is that which does good. True power is that which does good. And that his objective was to make himself useful. Jesus' objective via the healings was to make himself useful. Not to satisfy the curiosity of the indifferent with extraordinary things. So he was not performing these healings in order to feed the curiosity of the bystanders. No, he did it because he wanted to demonstrate his usefulness, which of course reminds us of the law of labor, right? The definition of labor that the spirits on high in the spirits book give us is any useful activity. And useful is meant also useful, or maybe primarily useful, for our brothers and sisters, not just useful for our own selves, because then we will be just self-serving in a more selfish way. But we are always invited, and this is what Jesus is modeling to us in the healings, to be others centered, being of service. And this is exactly what Jesus demonstrated through his healings and showing his power most and foremost. So usefulness and doing the good. So of course, we're doing the good when we're useful for others, right? By alleviating suffering, he connected with people through their, what do you think? How did Jesus connect? Through what did Jesus connect? By alleviating suffering. He connected with them through their hearts, through his heart, and through their hearts. That he touched their hearts, which is always the most powerful thing, when we can touch other people's hearts and other people touch our hearts. And he made more numerous, more sincere proselytes than if they had been impressed only by visual spectacles. So just putting on a show would not have worked as well. Acts always speak louder than words and or circus acts, right? He made himself loved, whereas if he had limited himself to producing impressive physical effects, as the Pharisees asked him of, most people would have seen him only as a sorcerer or a skillful magician, whom the idol would have gone to see in order to be entertained. Can we imagine Jesus as a magician, just operating for show? No, of course not. He came from the heart to the heart of the people. And this begs a question for us to check in with ourselves, because we see Jesus as our guide and model. Are we doing the same? How do we spread love? Are we touching the hearts of others in our lives? Are we doing it? How are we doing it? Often, the best experience is when we're a little helpless in that regard, to watch others touch our hearts. So we want to touch other people's hearts. Jesus was modeling that through his healings. And the next question, you can guess what that's like. The next question is, do we perform for others? Are we performance oriented? Because that would bypass the heart, most likely. That would be putting on a show. Are we coherent? Are our hearts and minds balanced? So that would be a good meditation to see, where are we at on a scale of 0 to 10 in our authenticity. And when we're authentic, we are much more likely to touch other people's hearts. So now here's another proof. Here's another lesson for us. When John the Baptist sent his disciples to ask him if he was the Christ. So when John the Baptist came and asked Jesus, "Are you the Christ?" what did he say? What did he not say? Let's start off with that. He said, "Yes, I am." But he did not say that. So that's a little confusing. Let's go back. When John the Baptist sent his disciples to ask him if he was the Christ, Jesus did not say, "Yes, I am." Why? Because any imposter could have said that, right? Even you and I could have said, "Yeah, I'm Jesus." Maybe more if it was a male, right? He did not speak of wonders or extraordinary things, but Jesus answered them simply. So what did Jesus answer to the question? Are you the Christ? Go tell John that the blind see, the infirmed are healed, the deaf hear, and the gospel is being proclaimed to the poor. Wow. This was telling them, in other words, recognize me by my works. Judge the tree by its fruit. Fantastic, isn't it? because that was the true character of his divine mission. And here it is summarized and most profoundly exemplified through his healings. So let us summarize. When they came, because John the Baptist wanted to know whether he was the Christ, he did not say, "Yes, I am." He showed them what he had done. The blind could see, the paralytic could walk, and the list went on, which was telling them really to recognize Jesus by his works, to judge the tree by its fruit. So this is something that we want to pay attention to in our own lives, and we want to make sure with others, but most and foremost, we want to pay attention of how is our fruit that we're producing? Is it tasty and juicy? Is it nourishing others? What is our fruit that we are producing from our tree? Are we handing out the gall of all fruits, bitter fruits, or are our fruits sweet and nourishing? So we want to look and assess people and ourselves with those eyes. So this is really helpful, isn't it? This is really helping us to navigate the day-to-day encounters and our own selves for our inner transformation in a new way, to put the lens on the fruit, not to go with the show, not to put on a show, but rather seeing what do I accomplish in my life? What good am I doing? How useful am I? And the same is with assessing others. But, others is between them and God. That's not our most and foremost activity, obviously, because we want to work on our own selves. But sometimes we are in situations where we're trying to understand other people, and at that moment, this particular way of looking at people is helpful, isn't it? In a benevolent way, of course. So let me see whether there's any questions or comments. Hi, Nora. Thank you, friend, for joining. And Mark and Teresa and Flavio and Tony. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure. And please feel free to comment or ask questions. So item 28. It is now, Alan Kardec, now that we're understanding Jesus better, with the help of what he's writing, he's now drawing a parallel to Spiritism. And what he says is, it is also by means of the good it does that Spiritism proves its providential mission. So he says, Spiritism too does the good, and thereby proves its providential mission. Spiritism heals physical ills, but heals moral infirmities especially. And therein lie the greatest wonders through which it affirms itself. Its most sincere adherents are not those who have been impressed by the sight of extraordinary phenomena, but those who have been. And now comes the list of those people who have been mostly following, practicing, being open to Spiritism. And we're going to do a little share here. Just a second, friends. Because we have them, this is kind of like a list, and it's good to have a little bit of a visual going. So let's see how we can do this. Quickly share so you can see. Okay. All right. So here it is. All right. So remember, he said, Spiritism helps people heal physically, but most and foremost, morally, the moral infirmities. And therein lies the greatest wonders through which it affirms itself. So the most sincere adherents of Spiritism are not those who are looking for fantastic phenomena, but they are those who, number one, are looking for consolation. People want to be consoled. Number two, freedom. People are looking for freedom of their torments, of their doubts. Many people are tormented by doubts of all kind of nature. Spiritism helps to free people of the torments of their doubts. Furthermore, Spiritism offers courage and strength in light of certainty of a future life. We know the Spirit's book is fantastic in teaching us, understanding ourselves better, understanding spirits better, which is us, understanding where we're coming from, why we're here, and where we're going. So in that sense, it gives us the courage and the strength to navigate our daily life, the vicissitudes of life, living in the valley of flesh, which is such a drastic way of expressing it. But it gives us, once we know what the purpose of this life is, when we know that there is a future life, when we understand the bigger picture better, we receive courage, we feel more courageous, and it gives us strength, right? So that's another item. It's item number 3, that's Spiritism, the providential mission of Spiritism. Number 4, it gives us knowledge of us, about us, our spiritual being, of the intelligent principle, which is us. We understand ourselves better, right? Spirit's book, completely dedicated. The beginning of the Spirit's book helps us so much to understand the ins and outs of spirits, which is us. And then further, it gives us knowledge about our destiny. Again, the Spirit's book. And of course, the André Louis series and Emmanuel, all the Spiritist literature is giving us help in that regard. But I find the Spirit's book, through the question and answer approach personally, so organized, and it's so clear, and so it's almost like definitions, right? Very helpful. And then the beautiful literature flashes it further out through examples of other people's lives, so we can have better examples and pictures of what is actually meant, right? So Spiritism offers us the knowledge of our destiny. It helps us to boost our faith, to create unshakable faith based on feeling and comprehension. The messages at first hit our head, but over time and practicing the knowledge, we strengthen the second wing. There's 2 wings that are needed for us to ascend to God. Emmanuel teaches us in Thought and Life. One is the wing of knowledge, the one of wisdom. And the other one is the wing of love, of service, of making use of our knowledge, of being useful, right? Love, labor. So, and as a result of the better understanding, our faith gets boosted. It also goes hand in hand. And lastly, it's the increase of our moral benefits. We understand better of how important our inner transformation is. And with the help of the gospel and Jesus's teachings, the gospel according to Spiritism, we have a moral compass, our north, right? Our north, which is our guiding star of how to conduct ourselves and where our weaknesses lie, so that we can become more God-centered, looking towards Jesus as our guide and model. So we can see that there is a similarity between Jesus and Spiritism. And we know that Spiritism is the promised consoler, right? And consolation is high on the list. And it's actually the number 1 that Allan Kardec gives us in that. So this is item 28, if you wanted to read the whole section on your own. Hence, he says, it will not be through wonders that Spiritism will triumph. And of course, this book was written 150, 160 years ago, which was just at the dawn of Spiritism. So now we know he was right? It was not through wonders that Spiritism spread throughout the world. Instead, it will be through the increase of its moral benefits. Because even if disbelievers do not believe in the wonders, they, like everyone else, do know suffering and affliction. And no one turns down relief and consolation, right? And that is really the stronghold of Spiritism, to be consoling, just like Christ Jesus. So beautiful. All right, so now let us move on to the next one. Let me see. Yeah, so possessions, which is now item 29. So I just wanted to go back to chapter 14 for just a second for those of you who maybe joined for the first time, or we forget. So it's good to get a quick booster about the mechanism of healings that we studied several weeks ago. So here's the principles. Healing, magnetic healing, is expressed by replacing unhealthy molecules with healthy ones. And it is through the universal cosmic fluid condensed in the perispirit that supplies those fluids. And these fluids can be reparatory elements. They can be more pure and more healthy than that of the person who is sick. So the person who is sick displays some unhealthy molecules. And so then it's either an incarnate past giver or healer who wills these fluids towards the sick person. There's the exchange happening, or it comes from a spirit directly to the incarnate who is sick, the fluidic exchange, or it comes from a spirit through the past giver or the healer, whatever label you want to give the incarnate who is willing to help, and then enters the diseased body. The fluid exchanges the fluids of the diseased body with the healthy fluids. And all of these can also happen in combination. So in other words, it is the fluids that performs the role of therapeutic agent. One gets replaced by the other. The effect of the fluid depends on its quality and circumstances. Now we know, so the more pure the perispiritual fluids are, the more effective the healing can be, because we know in the case of Jesus, of course, it was the most pure perispirit. So we can also be charitably active with our inner transformation, purifying ourselves, right? And that we do through our thoughts, going on a mental diet, on an emotional diet, and of course a physical diet, right? Food diet. So let us get back out of here. Yeah, so we're back. So that was just a little detour. Now we're going to possessions, item 29. Now there's a lot of text, and we're gonna do our best here to summarize it, right? So bear with me. So next they came to Capernaum, and this is from Mark 1:21 through 27. Next they came to Capernaum, and on the Sabbath Jesus entered the synagogue and began to teach them. So we've seen in the previous weeks that Jesus liked to go to the synagogues on the Sabbath. And Alan Kardec also opened our eyes to the fact that Jesus did that on purpose, and he wanted to essentially protest those stringent, strict rules of the Jews of observing Sabbath, and he showed them a little bit of the hypocrisy. So here he goes. They marveled at his doctrine because he was teaching them as one having authority and not as the scribes. Scribes, in contrast to Jesus, did not have authority. Now, what comes to mind is authority versus authoritarian. Two very different things. Authoritarianism is based on fear. It's based on suppression. It's based on force. Whereas true authority is a moral quality. So it's two very different things. And Jesus, of course, as the master, as the guide and model, was the master of authority because of his moral status, right? Now, in the synagogue, there was a man possessed by an unclean spirit who was exclaiming, "What is there between you and us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You are the Holy One of God." So this is what the man said. Jesus, however, said to him threateningly, interesting, right? Jesus being threatening. "Be quiet and come out of that man." Aha. Then the unclean spirit threw the man into violent convulsions, let out a loud scream, and came out of him. So that was a disobsession moment, right? Because the one who spoke disrespectfully towards Jesus was the spirit, and Jesus the obsessor. And Jesus recognized that instantly. How beautiful, right? All were so surprised by this that they asked one another, "What is this? What is this new doctrine? He orders with authority. Even unclean spirits obey him." So this is our example number one. Hopefully we can hold that thought, right? But they're all along the same line, so it's not like radically different. So item 30. After they had left, they presented him with a mute man possessed by a demon. The demon having been cast out, the mute man spoke, and the people were filled with wonder, saying, "We have never seen such a thing in Israel." So there was a mute man, and again, Jesus cast out the spirit, the obsessor, and the man spoke. But the Pharisees were saying otherwise. "It is by the prince of demons that he casts out demons." So this is in Matthew 9:32-34. So even though Jesus performed this disobsession, which was looked at as a miracle at the time, the Pharisees didn't like it. No, they said he must be a demon in order to be able to cast out demons. Between you and I, we already know that can't be, right? Because we very clearly learned in the earlier chapter, and that's why we just looked at that slide, that only healthy fluids can replace unhealthy fluids. An unhealthy fluid can't exchange an unhealthy fluid. It's not happening. It can't be. It's not logical, right? So right there, when we understand the mechanism of healings and how the fluids are being applied, how it all works behind the principles behind the scenes that we uncovered thanks to Alan Kardec, we know that it can't be that demons cast out demons, right? All right, next one, 31. When he came to where his other disciples were, Jesus, right? When Jesus came to where his other disciples were, he saw a large crowd of people around them, several scribes arguing, and Jesus approaches and he asks, "What are you arguing about?" And a man in the midst of the people said, "Master, I have brought you my son, who is possessed with a mute spirit, and whenever it seizes it, throws him to the ground. And the boy foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid." That's kind of like an attack, right? Epileptic attack almost. "I asked your disciples to cast it out, but they could not." So he comes to the temple and he sees these people arguing. There's this one man who explains to him that he has a son who is possessed, and the possessed spirit causes this convulsions to happen. And the man had already asked the disciples to help, but they weren't able to. Jesus answered them, "O disbelieving people, how long will I be with you?" Very prophetic, right? They brought him, and as soon as he saw Jesus, the spirit began to shake him violently. So they show, they bring this kid, the son, and they show what happens. He fell to the ground where he rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has this been happening?" "Since infancy," said the father. Now Jesus speaks response. "If you can believe, all things are possible for him." If you can believe, he speaks to the father. If you can believe that all things are possible for him, who believes? Immediately, the boy's father exclaimed to him in tears, "Lord, I believe. Help me in my disbelief." Because we're talking about faith, right? Absolute faith. We need to believe. If you can believe, all things are possible for him who believes. So again, we're boosted, we're reminded, practicing faith, faith, faith. So important. Always practicing faith. And these days on planet Earth, aren't they just perfect for us to practice faith? Right? Every day is some news, and it's like, all right, are we choosing fear or faith? right? So we're like, God is giving us a global opportunity to practice faith. It's beautiful. What a gift, right? God only gives us what we need. Not exactly what we want, always. So anyway, and seeing that a crowd was coming nearer, Jesus spoke threateningly to the unclean spirit. So again, Jesus threateningly and with authority speaks to the obsessor. You deaf and mute spirit, I order you to come out of the boy and not to enter him again. And then the spirit, having let out a loud cry and having shaken him violently, so he leaves. The spirit leaves. While Jesus was going home, his disciples asked him in private now. So he performed another disobsession. And the disciples are now wondering, like in private, they asked Jesus, why could we not cast the demon out? What did Jesus say? And to me, I personally think this is really pivotal for us. And we may just go past it, but I want to kind of put the flashlight on. That kind of demon can be cast out only through prayer and fasting. This is in Mark 9:13-28. Now, Alan Kardec is not commenting on the prayer and fasting. It struck me as so important for us to take note of that. If we want to be helpful, if we want to be even helpful with our own demons, what are we asked? What does the prescription say that Jesus gives us here in Mark? Prayer and fasting. Now, fasting is never only fasting with food. It's fasting emotionally, right? It's fasting with our minds. It's more meditation, stillness. When we meditate more and we're going beyond mind, the thinking mind, the monkey mind, the daily mind, right? That gets us through life. It's important for us. But there is beyond that, there is the mind, the stillness, right? And that will help us to be more effective in healing ourselves and others. Prayer and fasting. Profound. 32, one more case, and then we're going to go into Alan Kardec. I hope you guys are still bearing with me. Then they presented him a possessed man who was also blind and mute. And he healed him so that he began to talk and see. All the people were filled with wonder at this and asked, is this not the son of David? But when the Pharisees heard this, they said, this man casts out demons only by the power of Beelzebub, the prince of demons. Again, they were harping on the fact that they called Jesus a demon, that he was a demon casting out demons. Now Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said to them, every kingdom, and this is also really important, right? Also for us right now, every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or house divided against itself cannot stand, right? Divide and conquer. This has been the method of the dark forces for eons. So we need to guard ourselves. We have a beautiful opportunity to fall into that trap if we haven't yet. The divide and conquer. How many people are in their families divided, right? How many friendships have broken up because of polarization? Are we supporting that? Are we further creating polarization, right? Or are we looking for the common knowledge we have, for the common goals we all have? We all want the same. We're all children under one God, right? So we're invited to not go there. And Jesus tells us here, he says, every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined. It's very clear. And every city or house divided against itself cannot stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he's divided against himself. It's not possible. Therefore, how will his kingdom stand? And if it is by Beelzebub that I cast out demons, by whom do your son cast them out? Thus they themselves shall be your judges. But if I cast out demons by the Spirit of good, the kingdom of God has thus come to you. Beautiful, right? So he was showing them very clearly that their thinking was not logical, that didn't work. Matthew 12:22 through 28. All right, now let's see what Alan Kardec helps us further to understand these many examples. So he says, along with the healings, the liberating of the possessed figure among the most numerous acts of Jesus. Liberating the possessed were the most numerous acts of Jesus. And we know that, right? We've read a lot of those examples. And even just now, we had a whole bunch of them. So Jesus cast out many, many demons. He did continuous disobsession work. It is probable that at that time, at the time of Jesus, as it is still the case nowadays, so it's still today too, the influence of demons was attributed to all infirmities whose cause was unknown, especially muteness, epilepsy, and catalepsy. So this is an important piece of information for us, right? Back then, Jesus' time, most illnesses were attributed to demons, to spirit obsessions. And Alan Kardec says this is still the case nowadays. So this is something that, of course, gets completely overlooked by allopathic medicine. And psychiatry does not really focus on that either. So this is really opening up the possibilities for healings. And again, the Spiritist centers are the most beautiful ways for us to easily access that kind of healing. It's vital, because here we're learning how widespread the cause for illnesses is obsessions, which are most often based on unbridled passions, lack of forgiveness. And that is something that because it's not just that we are on the receiving end of obsessions, we're never the victims, because we're always co-creators, we allow it, right? But what's even worse is when we become the obsessors, right? Continuous thought in the negative. So muteness, epilepsy, and catalepsy. There are others in which the action of evil spirits cannot be doubted. So it's not just those three, but it's even more illnesses. The proof of the participation of a hidden intelligence, namely an obsessive spirit, in such a case stands out from a material fact. And here it is. Many radical healings have been obtained in some spiritist centers solely by means of evoking and moralizing obsessive spirits, without magnetization or medication, and frequently with the patient absent and far away. So Alan Kardec, already all the way back then, and we know it from our own lives in spiritist centers, right? Is the proof lies in the spiritist centers, because how often have we observed or have we been part of this obsession work, helping others in their healings, sometimes even spontaneously. I have personally experienced it on my own body at Bethesda Spiritual Healing Center. It was unbelievable. And it was within, I want to say, 5 minutes, maybe less. The actual act was probably just a few seconds. But it was unbelievable. And I was close to discarnating, and it was about 5 years ago. So it's amazing, very powerful. So we may know it from our own lives, we may have observed it, and we don't even need to be physically present, right? He says here, it's even absent, far away. Christ's immense ascendancy gave him such authority over imperfect spirits. Again, Christ's immense ascendancy, the purity of his spirits, gave him such authority, not authoritarianism, right? Authority over imperfect spirits, because every time he spoke with authority and the spirits got casted out. at the time called, and they were called demons at the time, that all he had to do was order them to come out in such a way they could not resist his command. They left. Any questions? No. So here Alan Kardec helps us to refer back to chapter 14, number 46. We're talking about obsession, Jesus' authority, casting out the demons. And because he was such an evolved spirit, he had this authority. Let me see, 14. Yes. So here, let us just revisit real quick the more mechanical aspect of this obsession work. An evil fluid cannot be repelled by an evil fluid. So here it is, when the Pharisees said to Jesus that he was a demon, casting out demons, it can't be, right? So Alan Kardec explains it to us from a different perspective. It's not possible. The Pharisees were wrong, sorry to say. So an evil fluid cannot be repelled by an evil fluid. By means of an action identical to that of a healing medium in cases of illness, it is necessary to expel the evil fluid with the aid of a better one. Jesus's fluid, Jesus's authority, Jesus's purity, Jesus's moral standing allowed him to cast out these spirits, not because he was a demon, but because he's was a highly evolved spirit. This is the mechanical action, but it is not always enough. Above all, it is also necessary to act upon the intelligent being, with whom one must have the right to speak with authority. And such authority is not given except by moral ascendancy. Again, Jesus, right? The greater the ascendancy, the greater the authority. So the exchange of the fluids is one aspect of healing, but often when there is an obsession happening, and we learned it's quite often, then also the intelligent principle, the intelligent being behind that is obsessing, the spirit that's obsessing the obsessed, the sick one, the ailing person, needs to be dealt with. And he says it needs to be spoken to with authority. And the authority is more so developed, the more developed the one who speaks with authority is as a spirit. The more pure the spirit, the more authority. So, in other words, when we work in this obsession works, again, the invitation is to work on our inner transformation, because the more pure we become, the more with authority we can speak and help those in the disobsession work. So it would be good. So Alan Kardec refers back to number 46, item 46 in chapter 14. So with this particular item, you may want to go back and reread that item 46 in its entirety, because we just picked out a little bit. So now we are on page 337 in the book Genesis, and it's item 34. Alan Kardec helps us to gives us more information on the cases that we discussed, and we are almost running out of time. So let's see. The incident where the evil spirits were sent into the bodies of pigs is contrary to all possibility. Now let us not dwell on that. He didn't give an example here, but there was an example in the gospel where the evil spirits went into the pigs. But what happened is, Alan Kardec says clearly that can't be true, really, because human spirits can't go into animals. So that is his point on that. That's item 34. So you may want to read that. So item 35. Obsessed and possessed individuals seem to have been quite numerous in Judea and at the time of Jesus, which provided him, Jesus, an opportunity to heal many. So obsession was rampant. Possession was very common. Undoubtedly, evil spirits had invaded that country and caused an epidemic of possessions. I think that's fascinating. So maybe we remembered chapter 14, item 49. So here in 35, he said in Judea, there seem to be tons of obsessions, right? And it's like an epidemic had happened. So maybe we remember chapter 14, item 49. Where is it? 14, 49. Okay, 49. Here we go. Allan Kardec educated us. Obsession and possession most frequently involve individuals, right? We know that one-on-one thing. But at times they're epidemic. Whenever a cloud of evil spirits descends upon a locality, it is as if a troop of enemy forces has come to invade it. In this case, the number of affected individuals may be considerable. So this is very, very important for us to be aware of from my perspective, because we may want to look at our situation on planet Earth right now. This is just food for thought. So let us continue. Although not an epidemic, individual obsessions are extremely frequent and appear under the most varied aspects, a fact that may be recognized through an in-depth understanding of Spiritism. So epidemics happen, but the one-on-one is extremely widespread. They can often have deplorable consequences for one's health, those obsessions, whether by aggravating organic afflictions or by causing them. So they can either aggravate our problems, physical problems, mental problems, emotional problems, or they can even cause them, these obsessions. Incontestably, they will someday be classified among the pathological causes that require special curative measures due to their special nature. Don't we wish it was more widespread, this knowledge? That more people could be healed, right? By revealing the true cause of the malady, Spiritism opens up a new path to the art of healing and furnishes science a way to be successful where it fails frequently, only because it does not attack the primary cause of the malady, right? So somebody has epileptic attacks. How often is that? I know up here at least, and I'm sure it's everywhere, in the homeless population, it is so widespread that one of the key problems why homeless stay homeless is because of their recurring epileptic attacks that then they medicate, self-medicate. And it's like this cycle. Now, can we imagine how beautiful it would be if this malady was recognized for its true cause? So let us jump real quick to the Medium's book, chapter 13, because that's Allan Kardec's reference he's drawing. Okay, chapter 13, we are there. No, hold on, just a second, sorry. It's actually 23. Okay, yeah. So this is the chapter on obsession. So chapter 23 is dedicated to obsession here in the Medium's book. Very vital companion study. Again, it's huge, but we're just going to pick out a few items. There's 3 different main categories of obsessions: simple obsession, fascination, subjugation. The simple obsession is the kind of thing where the mediums kind of know that they're being deceived. There is a knowing, well, this doesn't quite fit. And so there is still consciousness on behalf of the medium that there's something off in the transmission. And it also shows itself in physical obsession through noisy and obstinate manifestations, right? So that's simple obsession. Consciousness of the medium is kind of recognizing it. The next level up is fascination. Now that's much more tricky because here the medium is deluded. The capacity to judge and the quality of the communication is gone, is paralyzed. Fascinated mediums do not believe themselves to be deceived. So this is really tricky, right? Those who think that this type of obsession can only touch simple, ignorant, and senseless persons are mistaken. The most refined, educated, and otherwise intelligent individuals are not at all exempt from this kind of delusion. So this is very tricky. Consequences of fascination are very serious. So, and of course, the obsessive spirits, they're also very cunning and they're very deceptive, right? And then the third level up is subjugation. And that's a constriction that causes its victims, I mean, the obsessed, to become completely paralyzed, making them act in spite of themselves. It's a true bondage, both mentally and physically. So there, people just, it's an irresistible force, inviting mediums. It's this incessant need to write. So anyway, that is when the willpower of the obsessed is completely absorbed by the obsessing spirit. So, and now just so that we can be alert in our own lives, we want to just give you in from item 243 real quickly the download, how we can recognize obsession in ourselves, maybe in others too, but in ourselves. A spirit's insistence on communicating. Do we have a spirit that constantly wants to communicate? It's an insistence. Good spirits are never insistent, right? If we are not open, then they withdraw. The next one is number 2 is the illusion is, in spite of the intelligence of the medium, it prevents the medium from recognizing the falseness and ridiculousness of the communications received. So when a medium passes on or gives a communication and does not recognize that it's not very cohesive, that it doesn't really make sense. Number 3, a belief in the infallibility and indisputable identity of the spirits who communicate, and who state lies and absurdities under respectable and venerated names. You know, it's like if I claim Dr. Becerra Jimenez came through and said we needed to start a war. It's just a silly example. I doubt he would do that, right, friends? I doubt he would do that. And then I would insist on that that's correct. And I wouldn't even see, right? So that would be an example here. Number 4, the medium's acceptance of praise from the spirits. The medium's acceptance of praise from the spirits who communicate through his or her intermediation, right? So pride. Number 5, a propensity for avoiding those who could provide enlightenment about the situation, right? So are we open to feedback for the messages that come through us? They can be analyzed, or we don't want that, right? So there is a red flag there. Offense, number 6, offense taken at criticism of the communications received. Wow, right? That's pretty common. So that's another sign of obsession. Number 7, an incessant and inopportune need to write. Number 8, any form of physical coercion that dominates the will and forces of the one who acts to speak without wanting to. So any violence, any force, any coercion is a sign of obsession. Continuous noises and disturbances around the medium that are either caused by the medium, him or herself, or that have the medium at their target. So when the mirrors fall off the wall in our houses, right, for example. So those are the main items, characteristics to watch out for in us, in our environment, in terms of obsession. So let us wrap up now. Item 36. Jesus was accused by the Pharisees of being assisted by demons in casting out demons. Right? So according to them, the Pharisees, the good that Jesus was doing was the work of Satan. They did not reflect on the fact that if Satan cast himself out, he would be committing a nonsensical act. They couldn't see that. That didn't logically make sense, that Satan wanted to cast out himself. That's like the divided kingdom, right? It is worth noting that the Pharisees at that time held that every reputedly transcendent, and for that reason supernatural, faculty was the work of the devil. So the Pharisees at the time thought that anything supernatural, anything that looked miraculous because they didn't understand the mechanisms behind it, came from the devil. Thus, in their opinion, Jesus himself had received his power from the devil. This is one more point of similarity with nowadays, Allan Kardec says, and such a doctrine is still that of the Church, which today tries to prevail against spirit manifestations. So he says that at his times, and it's actually still true, right? That the churches are doing the same as the Pharisees. They are staying away. They don't want to touch any spirit manifestations. And it's because they don't understand it. And even if we wanted to explain it to them, I tried once, many don't even want to hear about it because they're very deeply ingrained belief that that is evil. So, but we know it's not. We know how incredibly helpful and healing it is to work with the spirits as a medium and as a healing agent. And we're grateful for all the messages we receive and the help we receive from the spirit realm. And we certainly understand the mechanisms so that evil can never cast out evil. Only good can cast out evil. And when we imagine is the evil is, so to speak, the darkness, the absence of light, and we picture a dark room and we come in and we don't see anything, right? But in order to take away the darkness, we come in with a huge light. There it is. The darkness is cast away. It doesn't exist anymore. It's the same thing with healing, and it's the same thing. It's the exchange, right? And it's the same thing that Jesus was trying to have the Pharisees understand. So the more light we're creating on planet Earth, the more the evil forces cannot have any hold on us. Dear friends, thank you so much for joining. Let us be grateful to God, to Jesus, to the mentors of Kardec Radio, our own mentors, the mentors of this group, and of course, Allan Kardec, for this tremendous work that so beautifully lifts the veil up and we understand a bigger picture. And we're grateful because it will allow us to be more effective, to be more useful in our incarnation. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining. Big hug, much love. And so God willing, we will see you next time, same place, same time, with the continuation of the study of the so-called miracles. Good night, dear friends. God bless you.